get this. I hope you all get some time to enjoy this beautiful sunny day in Chicago. It won't last very much longer. So my name is Prabhath Nanisetty. I'm the head of Insights and Client Service at Infoscout. And I've got 3 objectives for you today. I want to tell you a little bit more about our company. We're fairly new on the scene and very excited about mobile technology. And thanks to Justin, very excited about what we are starting to learn with mobile and connecting it with purchase data as well. So the second objective that I have for you today is to just give you a bunch of insights that you can have, and just enough that pique your interest, and hopefully we can have a further conversation at your booth, at our booth. So for those in the back, it's really hard to see back there, so feel free to join us on this web address here, join.me/Infoscout, same presentation. And my colleague back there will graciously click along with me here. All right, so a little bit about Infoscout. Who are we? So at the core of what we are leveraging mobile technology to understand more of the shopper's path to purchase and that consumer's consumption habits. And we're doing this in multiple different ways, but at the core of it is receipt capture. We're asking them to give us pictures of their receipts as they make shopping trips. And we have a lot of proprietary technology that takes that and turns it into actual product data, connected with person and connected with other insights that we can draw on while talking through it. And we make a lot of this data available, some for free, so if you log on to our website, you can look up roughly about the top 1,000 brands and a lot of the top retailers for free. Purchase frequency, penetration, all the standard channel metrics. And for our clients, we have other dashboards and other capabilities that we offer. And we go to market with 2 apps. That's how we build our game. We have Receipt Hog and Shopperoo. Some of you might be familiar with them. Receipt Hog is very traditional. You click, take a picture of the receipt, and you get some monetary benefits, and there's a whole host of things associated with that. Shopperoo, you can kind of think about it like a box tops for education. We incent people to take pictures of their receipts, and then money goes to a school or charity of their choice. So as you can imagine, very different types of people that are gladly willing to give us their receipts. So why receipts? This is one of the interesting things about confirming what people actually buy, related to Justin's topic here. It's fast, right? We don't need to have panelists go and scan every item and answer questions about it. They just snap a picture of their receipt and they're on their way. So they're much more likely to give us their information and more likely to give us all of their information about their shopping trips. It's accurate. So right on the receipt, we have what they bought, when they bought it, where they bought it, price points, you name it. It's all on that receipt, and it's ubiquitous across a lot of different channels, a lot of different places. And it's rich. There's just a ton of information on this receipt that if you mine it, there's very interesting insight that you can start to draw from. And obviously where and when they bought it, but how did they pay for it? They use cash, credit, food stamps, WIC. What do they actually use to buy that? Are they a loyalty card member? A whole host of things that you can learn from that receipt and start to really see patterns over time. So we're a huge fan of mobile technology. It's helped us build a bigger, larger, and richer panel much more fast. And what do I mean by that? We mean more shoppers and more completely. So more shoppers, our panel in just 2 years is 500,000 people that have downloaded the receipt or uploaded a receipt. And more completely. And what do I mean by more completely? Well, a lot of CPG companies are faced with this task of looking at a lot of the standard channels. Once they want to go outside of that and understand their shopper from a multifaceted lens of where else are they shopping, what other things are they doing that influence their purchase. For example, if you are in the baby products business, you might want to know about diapers, you might want to know about baby food. But there's a lot of other categories here that are not tracked or easily tracked by traditional sources, and we can track a lot of these because we can take a picture of that receipt. And we've got all that information, and it's, like I said, it's ubiquitous across a lot of channels. So we track a lot of the standard channels, food, drug, mass, club, dollar. But we're starting to see a lot more interest in channels like convenience, where products are typically consumed before they even make it to the home to give us any product information. So we get a lot of this data. Liquor stores, bodegas, Los Angeles and some of these large markets where a lot of the purchase occasions are not even happening in traditional channels. So we can really get a lot in there. Online, pet, toy, you name it. There's, seeing a channel list of about 35 channels is a little overwhelming, but we're tracking a lot of interesting data. In addition to that, we marry that up with surveys. In context, real-time surveys based on retailer visits, product purchases, loyal shoppers who visited a retailer and then went to a competitive retailer. You name it, there's a lot of different things that you can do and ask once you know what people are buying, and it gives a whole lens to looking at scorecards. You can actually start to answer the question why. Why did they make this decision? What did they actually do? We can get that in real time. And finally, mobile technology is expanding every day. I mean, there was talk about quantified self, mobile pictures, media. We constantly want to bring a lot of this technology, but it's just so rich, it's so much more than what we've ever really had before. Finally, more shoppers, more completely, and faster. Right? So once somebody starts buying a new product that just launched in the marketplace, we can give you data within 3 to 6 months. Totally kidding. That is slow. We can give you data within a week. If you have a new product in the marketplace and you want to understand who's buying it, why are they buying it, how do they like it, we can give you data immediately. And that's all enabled by mobile. Highly engaged, willing to give data very fast with a large panel. So we're fans of mobile. So what I'm going to show you is just 6 snapshots that are enabled by mobile. Happy to have a conversation with you about any of them, but I feel like there's some real insights here that we've never been able to get before until we've started to leverage mobile to engage with these consumers on a much different level. So the first one is as we start to really map out this path to purchase and understand what are people doing at home, what are people doing in the store, what are people doing online, and how does it all connect together. One of the areas that we've noticed is there's an area between research, all the way to actually making a purchase that is somewhat undefined, and that's really the whole area of planning, shopping list. And one of the things that we've recently done, it's actually brand new, just a couple days old, is we've acquired a shopping list app and plan to integrate this with the rest of our capabilities. But we've integrated a company called Out of Milk. A lot of you might have heard of it already. It's the #1 shopping list app on any app store. We started asking ourselves, what can we learn from knowing what shoppers plan to buy? And we've had the data for about 3 days now, and we've started to slowly dig into it. It's starting to confirm some of these long-held things that we've seen either through survey data in the past or asking shoppers, but now we can connect it directly into what might they actually buy? What are they actually going to buy? How does that cycle of path to purchase actually look? So I apologize for people in the back. Hopefully you're following along on the web version. But we started looking at some of these categories that are really highlighted. So dairy, produce, meat, household needs, and so on. And started looking at how often do these categories appear on people's shopping lists. Remember, this is an app where people are using this constantly to manage their purchases and what they're going to buy. No surprise, dairy, produce, and meat are all the way up there at the top in terms of in the top ranked things that appear on shopping lists. Once you start looking at purchase data, however, there's a slightly different story. It sort of confirms a few of the things that we've probably suspected. Wherever you see a gray down arrow is where the rank is much lower on the actual purchase baskets than how often it appears on the shopping list. These are more these are more planned purchases where there's no real impulse purchase happening. Versus if you look at the data where you've got the blue arrows going up, these are data where the rank of the baskets, the actual transactions are much higher, especially in the case of snacks, than what people are actually planning. So planned categories versus unplanned. Some of these we kind of knew already, but it's going to be very interesting once we start to link this up with data. So the next question is understanding how much do brands play a role in these shopping lists? Are people actually typing in brand names, or are they just writing down the category? So this is the question we asked ourselves: what % of shoppers only specify the category in the shopping list? And we've looked at a few categories. And what we're really trying to understand in this path to purchase is, are they making the decision at home, or are they making the decision in store? And that's a really powerful thing to know as you start as a marketer, to really understand where do you put your funds? How do you manage your funds that you have, and how do you influence them? So we started looking at just a few categories. This is just a sampling. But categories like toilet paper, where almost everybody that's using that list app is putting just category, toilet paper, bath tissue, whatever, and not really specifying a brand. So that decision is most likely just made in-store on the shelf. Versus carbonated beverages, where a lot of people are specifying Coke, Diet Coke, Mountain Dew, they're much more likely to plan that purchase out and know kind of what they want to know, making that decision at home. Can anyone guess what that star is on facial tissue? Kleenex, right? That's a category where the category essentially has the same name as the brand, so we're finding other interesting things like that. So we're just barely scratching the surface on this sort of data, but it's very interesting to understand, especially as shoppers are actively engaging in their shopping list and giving us receipt data. There's a lot of insights that we can start to map out in this whole nebulous area of planning the trip. Okay. So another big group that we love to look at, and I'm sure just about everybody gets asked this question, is about millennials. What about millennials? And we firmly believe mobile is still just the most relevant way to engage with this whole group. Now, we fielded a survey just last week just to ask millennials a few questions, just to give you a few insights about them. And we tried to control this group as much as possible. Millennials are pretty broad. There's a lot of different types of millennials, millennial moms, there's younger millennials. So we tried to control this group as much as possible to see if we can see any interesting psychographic insights from them. So we looked at female, middle-income millennials who obviously have a smartphone. Between those age groups, 21 to 33, and roughly even proportions of people under 30 and over 30. So try to control this group as much and ask them some very simple questions about their media consumption habits. So what devices do you use to regularly access media and information? Some of this shouldn't surprise you, but 86% of them said the mobile phone is most likely to be used to regularly access media and information. And actually, when you ask those people, what percentage of the media do you get on this? Over 80% said at least a half to more than, to almost all their media is consumed on that. So probably not shocking, but one of the things that I was finding very interesting is this impact of network TV. Only 40% said that they regularly look at network TV, so ABC, NBC, CBS. That's a wide departure from probably what most marketers believe, or maybe some of the more savvy ones are starting to believe this. So we can start to look at this and see, are there interesting proxies for people that use network TV and don't use network TV, don't watch network TV? And is it a proxy for other psychographic things in their purchase behavior? So we looked at those people and picked a category, so beverages, and tried to understand what is their share of wallet, what is their share of purchases across different brands. And we can start to see some interesting changes here. So Coke, Diet Coke, some of the biggest brands, roughly no big difference between those two. But as you start to get into the smaller brands, and especially into energy drinks, you see a big shift over. I'm not saying this is causation, but it's an interesting way to find these people psychographically, that they're engaged, they're giving us data, and they're also actively giving us other data about themselves in order to really segment. Okay, so other hard-to-reach shoppers, SNAP shoppers. These are shoppers that are traditionally fairly hard to reach. They're low income. A lot of them actually have smartphones through various government programs, and so many of them are actually in our panel. So if you don't know, SNAP is what used to be called food stamps. Roughly 15 to 20% of U.S. households, depending on the source, receive some sort of SNAP benefits. The benefits are only for food, and there's varying stats on this, but roughly about 60% are employed also. So they've got some sort of income coming in addition to their SNAP funds, just part of the Food for Work programs. So one of the things that we've noticed with a lot of SNAP research is that they tend to ask a survey question about, are you a SNAP shopper? And they treat this shopper as kind of a one monolithic group. But realize SNAP shoppers have a lot of different need states that they're going through, right? They have to make a decision on, what do I buy? How do I pay for it? Because they can't use SNAP for health and beauty items or household needs or other items in the store. So they're constantly going through different need states. And we found some really interesting data. So we asked the question, where do SNAP shoppers, where do they choose to spend their money, whether it's SNAP or whether it's their personal money? So we're looking at dollars spent across channels when paying with a SNAP payment or when they're paying with their personal funds. And we see some very different behaviors. So when choosing to pay with SNAP, the food channel is more than half of where they spend their dollars. But the moment that they're using their personal funds, so maybe it's a category thing, maybe it's just they ran out of SNAP funds and they're starting to go into their personal savings in order to pay for these funds, you see a big shift towards SNAPs. So, and this is something that mobile helps us do because we're constantly engaging with these consumers on every single purchase occasion and understanding how they're making these purchases and some of the other choices that they're making. So all you knew was they were a SNAP shopper. Would you understand this and would you be making the right decisions about that? All right, so another thing that we see with mobile, again, our people tend to be very engaged on a mobile panel. They're reporting where they're shopping, snapping their receipts across the full purchase journey. And we know when and where they've made their purchases. So can we understand this whole journey, right? Trips tend to be a very anonymous thing. Walmart had 170 million trips last year, but people are making different decisions based on those trips. You might go to Walmart and then you might go to a Walgreens. How does that change your choices that you're making? What do you buy at Walmart? What do you buy at Walgreens? So we're trying to take the anonymity out of it. So introduce this concept of a trip circuit, where it's very simple. The shopper leaves their home and makes 3 stops. They go to Walmart, and they go somewhere else, H-E-B in this case, and then a Walgreens, and they spend a certain amount of money and buy certain things at each retailer. What were the choices that they were making? Why did they choose Walmart, and what types of things do they buy there when it's, say, the first stop on their trip versus, say, the last stop? So these are some of the insights that we're starting to gain from really understanding where and when shoppers are buying. So one of the questions that we also realized is, well, there's a lot of people that are not making multiple stops. They're leaving their house and then they go to Walmart and come right back, or another store. And so what's interesting about these one-stop shops that drive people to do that, especially over, say, a day, a week, a month, whatever that might be. And this is a really interesting concept because you can define this trip circuit across a lot of different levels. Maybe it's you define a circuit from the first time they visit a Walmart to the next time they come to a Walmart, or it might be defined on a time period. So there's a lot of different ways you can really understand this data to get some insights about how people are determining what they decide to buy and where. And so just one simple question that we wanted to ask is, well, how do different retailers stack up? So who is actually seen as a one-stop shop retailer? Is it who we traditionally think, or is it somebody else? So there's obviously a lot of differences between channels. Dollar channel doesn't tend to be, a one-stop shop destination, either as a pet store or a toy store. And so we looked at just grocery stores just to get some quick insights on this. And we asked ourselves, what percent of the trips are one-stop shop? Just ranked all the grocery stores, or a few of the top grocery stores. Anyone want to wager who's the king at one-stop shops? What percentage of trips are only made to that retailer and back home? John, any food retailer? Walmart. All right. Well, actually, it's H-E-B. So little retailer in Texas. So H-E-B sort of holds the king status for that. Walmart's actually we counted as mass, so it's not actually in this list. But if we put Walmart in here, it's actually somewhere in the middle, around where Meijer and Giant Eagle are. There's obviously a lot more purchases happening at Walmart that are also non-food. But if you look at that, it's kind of an interesting thing. There's some reasons why that we've worked with clients in the past on exactly why is H-E-B at the top of this list? What makes that unique versus, say, an Aldi or a Vilo or Whole Foods and a lot? What is it that changes that? We can capture that through looking at their basket or asking them directly. All right, and finally, just to play around here, we can understand shoppers in real time. Shoppers are actively providing us data. So 80% of the panelists within our panel are submitting receipts the same day, sometimes within an hour. So we get that data constantly in the data feed. And so we, last week we asked a survey, 1,000 people, just about their plans for Memorial Day. How much are you going to spend, where are you going to spend more on, where are you going to spend less on. And then if you visit our booth, I'm not going to give you all the detail here. You can start to see some of the data coming in real time on what did they actually buy over the Memorial Day weekend. So one of the questions, do you plan to spend more or less this Memorial Day? 18% said they plan to spend more, so it's good. Most of them said they plan to spend the same amount. We asked them, what categories do you plan to spend more on and you plan to spend less on? So you can kind of see those results where a category like paper or paper goods, definitely on the more likely to be have people spend less on that category. Meat and seafood tends to be the top, but we can look into this. And actually, what's really interesting is when you start to connect this with what we actually did. Did this actually play out? If it didn't, why? What changed? Or if it, a lot of different insights there. So please come over to our booth and learn a little bit more about the Memorial Day weekend and just way to find out exactly how fast mobile allows us to build this panel and capture data from it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So do we have any questions from the floor?
I'm going to cheat because I'm already holding the microphone, and then I'll share. I was just interested in two of the points that you made and kind of going back to a little comparison. In the second example where you talked about the snap shoppers, I really liked that you talked about how you used mobile behavior to kind of break them out into what they were doing differently and how that can help marketers. And you posed the great question, if you only knew that they were snap shoppers, if that's the only thing you knew about them, how effective would your marketing really be? I'm interested in why the same philosophy doesn't apply to millennials, because you did say that when you were describing millennials that they're older, they're younger, they're mothers, they're not mothers, but yet there wasn't a whole lot of information talking about their different mobile behaviors and how they vary as people within that generation.
That's right. Yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of differences within millennials. For the purpose of this one, we wanted to control it so we could at least look at their differences based on specific response. We wanted to control for as much things as we could to understand if they did or did not watch certain or consume certain types of media, would that actually make a difference in their purchase behavior? Because you could ask the same question, ask it across all mobile, but you'll have a wide range of ages. So obviously, younger people are going to purchase more of these energy shots and energy drinks. So there's a lot of differences there, and we do have a lot of granularity on millennials as well. For this particular one, we controlled it for a very tight group within millennials. Just to understand, really take out all the other factors as we get inside.
Okay. We'll take one more question. Gentlemen.
How do you incentivize people to actually take the pictures and send it in? It seems like a lot of work for a consumer to do that. Yeah. So what do they get in reward for providing with all this data?
It's a great question. So I'll answer it in two ways. So what we do is we incent them every time they take a picture of their receipt. They're incented on coins, basically, within our apps. And those coins can build up, and you can redeem them for PayPal or cash. We incent based on receipt size as well. So if they have to take multiple snaps, we incent more because it's just more of it takes more time. On top of that, we also incent on surveys and other ways to keep them engaged. We've also got some gamification layers in there so that we can engage them on other ways as well. Now, it is a task to scan in the receipt, but in order to actually get product information, the other way to do it is to have them scan all the products manually and type in product prices. So versus that, it's much easier. And we also find that shoppers are very willing to get those kind of rewards. Now, we have two different apps, Receipt Hog and Shopperoo. Receipt Hog is where you get the personal benefits, so you get the coins and you can redeem them. That's going to appeal to a certain type of person that's going to, willing to take lots of different pictures of the receipts. They tend to be younger, lower income. And then we have a second app, Shopperoo, which is very similar to take a receipt, but the incentive structure is different. Here, you actually can send coins and money to a school or charity, kind of like box tops for education. So people do it right now with box tops, and they're willing to spend the time to cut it out. It's just a different way to engage throughout that. We have other gamification layers in that, like leaderboards for your school, and you can see your neighbors higher than you on points. So there's different ways to engage that shopper, and they stay quite engaged. They give us that information.
Okay, very good. So for the purpose of time, we're going to move on. If anyone else has got any other questions, I'm sure they can find Prabhath or Infoscout at their stand during the break. So thank you very much for coming.